Are you struggling with powerlessness and depression in your life? Are you feeling powerless to control your life, or have you been feeling like your life is completely and totally out of control? We are going to discuss how to break free of these emotional states today, and I'm going to share my story going through them and what I did to achieve peace so that you can start your journey to growth and finding your own pathway to inner peace. Thank you for joining us today. My name is James, and welcome to the Serenity Journey. We are here to share our story. And this is something I have not done publicly until the last few days. And it's something that I think is really, really important if you want to find your pathway to peace. And we will take questions later. I want to go through my story first and share my perceptions and share some of the lessons I learned along the way. And then we will take questions if anybody has questions. And hello, Shelly Marie. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And if you do have questions and you're watching this on the replay, you can still ask your questions. Just leave us a comment below with your comments and your questions about what we're talking about in your journey with depression. So, just a little housekeeping first. Little bit of disclaimers that I got to do because I'm talking about something that is mental health related. I am not a mental health professional. I am not here to replace mental health professionals. I think that they are important. And I think that if you are having depression, you should see a mental health professional. I have had to in my own past, and they were very helpful to me. That being said, what I am going to share with you are my ways of dealing with it and my ways of coming through some of these mental health challenges in my own life. I look at everything from a very spiritual perspective. And so I approach it and approach healing from a spiritual perspective. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've used, some of the tools and the resources I've learned from to deal with my own depression in my life. Now, this is not to say that, we're going to be out of depression and we'll never have to experience it again. We are experiencing contrast in our lives. We experience highs and lows in our emotional states. As we do our healing work, which we will talk about, we can get to a point where we experience less and less of them. But at least in my experience, I cannot say that I have gotten to a place where I never experience it again. But because I have tools and strategies in place to deal with it, when I feel it coming in, when I feel it coming up, it no longer destroys me and shuts me down like it used to. Now I can deal with it and I can manage it and I can move through it in a way that's empowering, in a way that helps me to continue my own growth. I'm not perfect, but I'm a lot better now than I used to be. And it's because of these strategies and things we're going to talk about. So I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me today, Shelly Marie, in the chat. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. We're usually doing our live streams on Sunday, but we're going to be traveling tomorrow. And I wasn't sure if we were going to be traveling in time or getting where we're going in time to do my live. So we went ahead and decided to do it a day early today and get it out of the way. So thank you for joining me. I've suffered with depression for most of my life. I started feeling depression when I was a teenager, and some of it was just the way my life was going. I went through a lot of trauma as a teenager, and I wasn't allowed to express those things, and I wasn't able to express those aspects of myself. And I spent a lot of my life trying to bury it and hide it from the world and not showing people how I really felt. And so I spent a lot of time repressing those emotions. I got into personal development and spirituality in my late teens when I was about 19 years old. And through that, I misconstrued a lot of what was being said. And instead of doing the healing work, I just started repressing and putting on a face of being happy and being in a positive mindset. And I started, trying to do things to be more positive, but I was not healing the hurt. I wasn't healing the traumas and the wounds. And so I just repressed it for years and years and years. And I went through most of my adulthood doing this. And it all came to a head about 2 years ago, just before the pandemic broke out for me in 2019. At the end of 2019, my daughter got really, really sick. And I had just left my job at the prison, and my daughter got sick and was struggling. And then my wife got sick, and she was in the hospital for a really long time, and for weeks. And I had the entire weight of the world on my shoulders, and I had all of this repressed trauma from my childhood that was still there and unhealed. And so after my wife got out of the hospital, I was finally able to relax and allow myself to feel my own feelings without trying to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I went into this really deep, dark depression, probably one of the darkest I'd ever been in. And I went down hard, and I was gone for months. I pulled myself away and kind of, actually, my room, this now my studio, I kind of hid in my room and didn't come out for months. And I didn't interact with people unless I absolutely had to. And usually if I did, I was angry all the time. I was just in a bad rage. And then I would go back into my depression and I would pull away, and everybody didn't like me when I got angry and came out. So I went back down into my depressed state and went back inside myself and retreated away from the world. And I felt completely and totally powerless in my own life, in pretty much every aspect of my life. I was in fear, and I was in a very low negative state. And this lasted for several months. My business went to crap. I had a growing business in the reselling business, and it went to crap because I wasn't working on it, because I was just completely and totally in retreat mode. And it took a long time, and it was several months later. And then February, this was in like late January, early February of 2020. And then in March, the world blew up and went into chaos because I was in such a powerless state and I was in such a low energy state. The world went into chaos, and I felt the shift in the energy of the world because I'm an empath. I have been since I was a child. And because I was in such a low energy state myself, I took a lot of that energy into myself. So I was already depressed, and then the world went into this powerlessness and depression, and I felt that energy all around me, and I couldn't distinguish between the world's energy and my own. I didn't know at the time. I've learned since how to kind of distinguish between the outside energy and my own, but at the time I didn't know how to. I had already knew at that point I was an empath, but I just thought it was a curse in my life. And it was something that was destroying my life. It was not a power in my life. It was not a something that was a useful tool in my life. And I'm learning now through some of these processes how to manage that. So as I went through this for months, and I was completely powerless. I was feeling tension in my body. I was physically ill. And I actually had people that were telling my wife, and I found this out much later, that if I kept going the way I was, I'd be dead within 5 years. And I probably would be if I hadn't started the healing. And I don't know. I mean, there's always a chance I could be dead within 5 years anyway, because I don't know. We don't know how long we have. But I was in that dark of a place. I was either angry or I was depressed, one of the two. And I couldn't hide it anymore. I had ripped all my masks off. One of the changes that I had was I gotta quit wearing masks. I have to be who I am and just be who I am. And if people appreciate me and accept me, then that's fine. And if they don't, then that's fine. And accepting myself for who I am. It's just one of the things that I had to go through as I came out of it. But what got me going was I hit this rock bottom place in my pit of my stomach. where I knew I had to change me if I wanted to grow. I wanted to survive. I had to change. And I had to own that I was feeling this way because I felt this way. So I started researching some stuff on how to heal these emotions and how to get out of powerlessness. And I came across the teachings of Abraham Hicks, who I had listened to years before, but I hadn't really paid a lot of attention and applied a lot of what they were teaching because I was so caught up in my own inner turmoil that I wasn't really understanding what they were teaching. But I started listening with a more open mind. And then I also went back into the teachings of Dr. Wayne Dyer. And specifically, I went into his book called The 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. And as I was meditating and began meditating again, and I started listening to these positive messages again, just surrounding yourself with those positive messages from the teachings of Abraham, Kyle Cease, Dr. Wayne Dyer, channels like mine, people that are uplifting other people and trying to help people get a sense of control over their lives. Just the energy of those conversations helped me to feel better. It started raising my energy and my own vibration up to a point where I could actually start taking some control of it and start doing some actions to heal. And so as I listened to Abraham's teachings, I was led to their book called Ask and It Shall Be Given, which was the first of their books I ever read. And now I've read almost all of them over the last year. And one of the biggest takeaways in that book, if you haven't read Ask and It Is Given and you're in depression, I really recommend it because they have actually exercises. And there's two things that I learned through that. And the first one is this right here, the emotional scale. And grief, depression, and powerlessness is at the very bottom of the emotional scale. And I learned that I didn't need to go. See, most of the people that I was listening to were telling me to go all the way to the top: joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, love, passion, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness, and joy. And they were trying to tell me just change from being at the bottom of the scale to the top of the scale, and you're fine. The problem is that wasn't working. What I realized through studying their work is it was okay to be where I was at and to step myself up the emotional scale. So I started moving up. And if you look at the emotional scale, grief, fear, despair, powerlessness, and the one I add to that is depression, is at the very bottom of the emotional scale. And so as I started working my way up the emotional scale, instead of trying to skip the entire emotional scale and go straight to the top, I started getting a sense of control and power over my life. So that was number one. Now, how did I do that? One, in the book Ask and It Is Given, they got like 25 exercises to change your emotional state, depending on where you're at on the scale. And they actually have each exercise calibrated, saying, if you're at this point on the scale, this is the exercises you should be using. One of the ones that I used a lot was learning to set my intentions and segment intending. This is what I intend to create in this next segment of my life, and starting to set intentions. And as I started learning about intentions, I started listening to their work on intentions. I remembered Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, The Power of Intentions. So I went back and reread that book, and I listened to the audio program that goes along with that book because I already had it on my hard drive. And through those, I started working with intentions and understanding the energy of intention and bringing my intentions back up. And that kind of helped start lifting me back up. And I started making some fairly rapid progress up this scale. The first thing that I did was I started meditating every day. And since June of 2020, when I started this, I've only had about 3 or 4 days all total, and they were spread out, that I didn't do a daily meditation. And those days wound up being really bad days. I try to, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, I try to find some way to get some meditation time in. And meditation, a lot of people mistake meditation. I'll do a series later on about meditation. There's so many series I want to do, and it just can't get them all out at once. But I'll do a series eventually on meditation. But meditation is a whole bunch of practices under one term. You can do just mindfulness meditations, which is a lot of what I do now, which is just sitting and allowing thoughts to come up and allowing yourself, your feelings to come up and allowing yourself to feel them and sit with them. I learned how to do this a lot listening to Kyle Cease over here on YouTube. But you can just think, just sit and just allow whatever thoughts and feelings come up and feel where they feel in the body, because every thought and every feeling, you will physically feel it somewhere in your body when you learn to tune in and listen and relax. When you first start doing this, your mind is like, hey, you're finally listening to me, and it's going to race at 900 miles an hour. And especially if you're ADHD like I am. And what you have to do is you just have to sit through that and allow that racing to go. Because what's happening is your mind, which you have spent your entire life not listening to, is saying, hey, you're finally listening. We're going to tell you everything. And I found for myself that it took me about a week of going through that every single day before it started calming down. Every time I would sit down to meditate, it would just do this and do this and do this. And I felt, oh, I'm getting it wrong. This is something that a lot of people have to understand. When you're doing meditation, you cannot get it wrong. There is no right and wrong in meditation. It's simply just allowing to be what is, allowing my mind to be where it is. And sometimes I still get into those times when my mind is racing. So then that's mindfulness meditation, and I'll go deeper into it in other videos. But the other type is guided meditations, and there's a lot of them here on YouTube. I've listened to a few. My friend dear Dana has done a few, and I love guided meditations because it's somebody else kind of walking you through an exercise to do in your meditation. And these can be really powerful and helpful. I used some guided meditations to help me start getting rid of some of those fear-based emotions and start releasing some of those emotions to activate my chakras. There's a lot of great guided meditations that I went through for activating and healing my chakra energies and being able to release the negative energy that was encompassing me, helped me to raise my elevation and raise my emotional state. As we went through this, also, I started journaling. And as I start journaling, this is where I really found it powerful. And if you want our journals, we just published our own journals that actually go with the journaling techniques. We have a whole series of videos on journaling we've been doing, and we're going to be adding to them as we continue recording techniques on the different journaling techniques we use. But we have our own journals in the description below, or if you're watching on the live stream, it's actually right there in the cards in the live chat. It's the pinned comment. That's our personal journal we just published on Amazon through our own publishing company. And one of the things that we're doing is I started writing in journals about my feelings. I started writing daily gratitude, and I started daily meditations. One of the things I'm doing in my daily meditations is meditating on the Serenity prayer. So I just take it one line at a time. So the first line is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So my first meditation was on, okay, if I want to have serenity to accept the things I cannot change, what is serenity? And I spent an entire meditation on what is serenity and finding serenity in myself, finding my serenity space. It doesn't say, grant me acceptance of the things I cannot change so I can find serenity. It's grant me serenity so that I can find acceptance. And that's important because you have to get it in the right way. Serenity is not the result of what we do. It's the way to do it. The reason I call this Serenity Journey is because I also find in my own life, I found a sense of peace and calm through this meditation and through this journaling. But as we go deeper, that serenity gets deeper and stronger and better. and it grows and it becomes a part of your life. And one of the things that came through these early meditations that I was doing is I was recognizing and started meditating on the serenity prayer. I recognized that finding inner peace with myself and living in a place of peace with myself had to be one of my top priorities in my life, and protecting that peace had to be one of the priorities in my life in order to live the life I was born to live, in order to live the life that I want to live. So I decided then and there to make learning peace a priority in my life. I also learned through these meditations, and it took me a couple of months still before I started doing it, by the way, but I learned through these meditations that sharing these ideas, sharing this pathway to inner peace, sharing these spiritual principles and practices was that calling that I had. And part of the reason I was depressed. And there's three key components to why I was depressed. And I learned this through these meditations as I began healing. The number one was because I had a calling from spirit. We have four aspects of ourselves. I talk about it in a lot of my videos. I'm not going to go deeply into it, but we have the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit, our soul. Our soul is the only part of us that's actually real. The mind, the emotions, the body, we leave behind when we die. The spirit, our soul, is the only part of us that we take with us when we die. And so this is why a lot of people don't understand some of these spiritual concepts, is because they're thinking of it from the mind, from the body, and the emotions, and they're not connecting with their soul, with their spirit. And the spirit is where you will understand these spiritual concepts. So as we get into meditation, it's because the reason I promote meditation and journaling, both, is because they help me mentally, they help me emotionally, they help me spiritually, and they help me physically. It's a physical manifestation which helps me to create things in my journal. The meditation process helps me in all four areas. The journaling is a process that helps me in all four areas, which is why I promote those as my two biggest ways of making these shifts in your life. But we have to understand that in order to find that serenity, we have to start letting go of the old self. We have to start letting go of the attachments that we have to the ways of this world. And this is where we've had what we're calling the Great Awakening. There's this great big awakening going on around the planet. It's part of the reason we had this pandemic was to cause this awakening. And I see a lot of people going through this awakening and starting to do the spiritual work, looking for trying to understand the spiritual work and the strategies for doing this. Part of my calling is to guide people through this and finding peace with themselves. So I had this calling, and I've had this calling my entire life, and I've always repressed it. Along with repressing all of my traumas and my negative emotions, I was repressing my own calling. I wasn't living it out. And I'll go into other stories about that later. But the other thing was I was repressing all my traumas, all the wounds from my childhood, from my past. And as I started this healing process, all those traumas started coming up to the surface. That was part of why I was depressed too. Those traumas were starting to come up, and I was trying to fight them back down, and they were like, no, we're not going back down this time. So I was feeling all these traumas from throughout my life that I've just repressed instead of healing, and they were all attacking me at once. And one of the things that I came to realize is the reason they start coming up isn't to hurt you. They're coming up so they can be healed and released. And whenever I got that, I started intentionally working on healing them when they got caught up. I also started recognizing when somebody says something and it triggers me into my negative energy. It triggers me when somebody says or does something and it triggers me into jealousy, or if they say something and triggers me or does something that triggers me into anger or rage or resentment or hatred or jealousy or selfishness or powerlessness and despair, whenever anything outside of myself triggers me, that is showing me a clue of traumas that I still have yet to heal. So I can take that experience and I can meditate on it and start diving into, why did I react this way? Instead of blaming them for my reaction, blaming something outside of myself for my reaction, I have to create awareness that I am responsible for my behaviors, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so if I'm taking responsibility for my behaviors, then when something triggers me, I start meditating on, why did I react this way? I may not do it right there in the moment, but I will do it during my next time I can get away. And sometimes when this is happening in the moment, I try to walk away, and so that I can start doing this healing work on myself. And then people want to chase me and follow me and continue the argument because they're being triggered and they're not taking responsibility for their triggering. So one of the things that I have learned to do is to disassociate myself, not in a way of not caring or not lack of compassion for, but disassociating myself from taking responsibility for the emotions of other people. Because if I'm responsible for my own emotions and for what triggers me, then they are responsible for what triggers them. One of the things that I found is everything we do within, we also do without, but we have to do the work within in order to do it without. And this leads us into compassion and generosity and these principles that we talk about. So the first two, again, reasons why. One, I had a calling from spirit. It was my soul's calling. It's why my soul came into this planet, in this body at this time. I had this trauma from my childhood, which is all wrapped up in my calling because I went through those traumas for a reason. I had to learn from those traumas, and you can't learn from them until you heal them. And then they can leave. Once you heal them and learn what they happened for, then they're gone. They just leave on their own. You don't have to make things leave. You don't have to make the healing work. You just have to sit with it and be with it and learn from it. And then it can go and it no longer will trigger you. And so I went through this, and I've been going through this process now for a little over 2 years, and I'm much better at it now than I used to be. And I'm still on this healing journey. I'm much more peaceful now than I used to be. I can maintain my peace much longer and better and easier, even in stressful situations, than I used to be able to. But I'm not perfect yet. I'm still a work in progress every day. And so that's why I'm here. And I'm here to share. And part of the reason why I share my journey is I actually get deeper insights as I share these things. I get deeper insights into myself. So the first two is my traumas and my calling. The third reason why I was so depressed, that's all wrapped up into it. My calling, my traumas, and I was not listening to my own intuition. See, your intuition is your soul talking to you to get you into alignment with your calling. When you have intuitive feelings about something you should or shouldn't do, you'll need to learn to listen to that. I wasn't. I was ignoring it. I was shrugging it off, and I was suffering because I was ignoring my own intuition. My own intuition was trying to show me the peaceful way to get through this and the way to get through this without going through that depression. But because I was ignoring my intuition and I was repressing all my traumas, and because I was ignoring my calling, all these things started just piling up inside of me. So the first step I found was to start listening to my intuition, because your intuition will always show you the path of least resistance to get to where you want to go. The second thing is you want to start healing your traumas. And then we start listening to our calling. Now, we have to unpack this in the right order. If you start trying to listen to your calling before you heal the traumas, you're going to get a distortion of your trauma, of your calling. I was getting a distortion of my calling. I felt the calling. I knew I needed to get out of working where I was working before. That's why I had quit my job. But I had started a whole business because I was focused on money and financial security and stability and all these other things. But I started the wrong business. I started a business and I still run it on the side. I still do a little bit of it here and there. It's the reselling business that we started before we started this channel. And we built up a good following on that channel and in that community. And a lot of people that followed me when we first started this channel came from there, from that community over there. But that wasn't my calling. That was out of alignment with my calling. And it's something that I did because I needed money to put a roof over my head and pay the bills. The reason why I still do it sometimes is because I still need to put a roof over my head and pay my bills while I'm working on following my calling. But my true passion, my true calling, and the true thing is sharing these spiritual ideas. I was told years ago that I couldn't do that for a living. And okay. Bye-bye. Sorry, had a troll in the chat. Bye-bye. And so one of the things that we started doing was we started healing, we started meditating, we started working through our traumas and growing on a daily basis. And as I started making this healing journey, I started learning a lot. And I started getting deeper insights into myself and into other people. I started learning that there's one of the most important things I learned is that depression for me was completely and totally being in a selfish state. And I'm not trying to call other people being selfish, but I'm saying for me, when I was depressed, it was because I was completely focused on myself, but also on my conditions. I was focused on the things outside of me that I had no control over. And that's why I felt powerless. I was focused on how other people treated me rather than the character of myself, the things that I could control. And I had very little influence over anything in my life because I was completely and totally focused on all these things outside of myself. And so as I started healing and I started embracing this idea and I started working on myself, I started shifting my focus back to a focus of how can I better serve. And my first step of serving was going back to serving my business. And so I started rebuilding my business and I started redoing stuff on YouTube and connecting with the people in the reselling community. And I started rebuilding that. But I started helping other content creators because by that point, people saw my rapid growth of what I was going through when I came back. And because they saw the rapid growth I was going through, started getting questions almost every day about how to do stuff on YouTube. So I started helping people with YouTube growth and their content. But I still was feeling this desire to help people more and more as I was continuing my healing every day. I was doing those things to kind of pay the bills and helping me to move things forward. But I was feeling this calling to continue to get back into the spirituality and to start sharing my spiritual journey and my pathway and sharing these things that I had gone through and the path that I went through to get to where I am now. And so that's when we started the Serenity Journey. We started with just doing some shorts and seeing if people would talking about different aspects of the law of attraction and manifestations, and started talking to people about healing and energy work and spirituality and spiritual principles. And as we've gone forward, we've been just we're slowly starting to grow and gaining some traction and starting to get out now more and get in front of other people. We've started a club on Clubhouse. If you're on the Clubhouse app, we've got all of our social media all around where we are doing the same thing that we're doing right here. We're just sharing our message, sharing our own pathway. And I'm here not to be a guru. I'm not here to be, some kind of a master. I'm just here to share my experience and my journey and hopefully help other people as well. We also have our Serenity Meditation journals, as I talked about earlier. The link to those is up in the pinned comment in the chat. And they are also in the description down below. And if you're liking this, if you think that this can be valuable and helpful, feel free to subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of videos coming out on how to do meditations, how to do journaling techniques, how to make these shifts in your consciousness, how to move up that emotional scale. We've got a lot of videos that we've got planned in the works. I cannot make them fast enough to get them all out. I have a list of over 100 video ideas targeting different steps we've taken in this journey. And at the current rate I'm going, that's going to take me about 2 or 3 years to get them all online. So subscribe to the channel, follow our progress, and let us help you on the journey. And as people ask us more questions, we're making even more and more videos on that list. So as we started making progress, we started recognizing too that we had to start following our own intuition. We started listening to what our gut was saying. I continue listening to this day to other messages and other people. I listen to people on Clubhouse. I still listen to Abraham Hicks. I still listen to Dr. Wayne Dyer. I listen to Kyle Cease. I listen to a lot of other teachers, and I listen to what they say, and I've learned to feel my way through the lessons. And what I mean by that is anytime you hear something from somebody else, you can feel it in your body. And if you really just quiet your mind and feel that and sit with that idea, you can feel it constricting in your body, or you can feel it expanding in your body. When it's constricting, you might feel pain. You might feel a tightness. You might feel it in your heart. You might feel it in your shoulders. You might feel it in your stomach, but you'll feel that tightness and tenseness and maybe even physical pain if it's an idea that does not resonate with you. But when you hear these ideas and they do resonate with you, you will feel it, and you will feel an expansion. You will feel like you are growing and expanding and becoming bigger and more than you ever were before. So when we say take what resonates with you and leave the rest behind, that's what we mean. Find those things that feel like they're expanding you and leave behind the ideas that make you feel more constricted. Because what's right for me in my journey may not be what's right for you in yours. But I might say something today that doesn't resonate with you, and I may say something tomorrow that is the exact thing that you need to hear. So we all have our different experiences, and we're all sharing from our own experience and from where we're at. So just take what resonates, take what feels expansion and freeing and growing, and leave the rest behind. Leave that for somebody else. It may be a message that's there for somebody else. Start listening, though, and I'm a big fan of listening to other people. But eventually, this is why we do meditation. This is why we do inner work. As you start doing your own healing, you will start finding a connection with your own soul. And as you get into connection with your soul, this is where you're going to start finding your peace, because you're going to start understanding why you were born. You're going to start realizing this is what brings me into alignment. And alignment is really our biggest pathway to peace. Finding alignment with your mind, with your heart, and with your soul and your body. And you feel your way through these experiences, because our feelings, more than our thoughts, guide what we're going to experience. Every process begins with thought, but thought is in the mind. And the mind is twisted by the ego. The ego is the false identity that we've derived from our past traumas. And because we have this false identity called an ego, then that clouds everything that goes through our mind. But our feelings tell us what's in alignment with our soul, what's in alignment with our soul purpose for being here. A lot of people call the Great Awakening the opening of the heart. And the reason why is because it's really the activation of the heart chakra center in our body. And as that heart chakra center expands, you're going to start healing those wounds in your heart chakra, and it's going to expand your growth. It's going to expand your reach. But it's not something that happens overnight. And so it's not something that's going to completely shift your entire life overnight. But one of the things that we want to do is we want to start meditating every day. We want to start journaling and writing about our thoughts and our feelings and start writing about our meditations. One of the things I teach is we meditate is take an idea, a thought, a phrase out of a prayer, like I use the Serenity Prayer, and I did this line by line, and just sit with that thought. This is one of the types of meditation. It's more of a focused meditation where we focus on one idea, one thought. So I sit with God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I just sit with that for 10, 15 minutes. And I just breathe it in and I breathe it out. And whatever ideas about that thought come up, I want to then, after the meditation, write those ideas down in my journal. And when we do this, we start getting a deeper insight into what these prayers mean, to what these things can do to shift our lives. I did this with the Serenity Prayer. I've done this with the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. I've done this with a lot of mantras in my life and just different ideas. Anytime I have a new idea that I want to see, when people come to me and say, hey, would this be a good idea for you for your business? When I say I'm going to meditate on that, that's what I do. I just sit with that thought and I see how it feels in my body. And I sit with it and see what ideas and feelings come up about it. And then I sit there and I just contemplate it. One of the things it is we talk about the law of attraction and manifestation. And manifestation and the law of attraction isn't just about thinking thoughts, but it's also about taking actions. But when we look at our actions, we have to realize that all actions are counted. We have thought actions of our mind, which is when we contemplate ideas. And we have to contemplate ideas from the right direction in order to manifest them. If you look in his book, the book Excuses Be Gone, Dr. Wayne Dyer gives the example that the laws of flight were not discovered by the contemplation of the staying on the ground of things. The laws of flotation were not discovered by the contemplation of the sinking of things. The laws of flotation were discovered by the contemplation of how things float. The laws of flight were found by contemplating how things could fly, not the impossibility of flying, not how things have to stay on the ground, how things fly. We have to get out of the subject of this is impossible and off of the subject of what we want to lose. When it comes to things like, weight loss and creating wealth, instead of focusing on how can I get out of being broke, which your focus is on the being broke, focus on how do I improve my wealth? How do I improve my financial stability? How do I grow my wealth? How do I grow my money? Not how do I stay in lack? How do I stay in this mindset of lack? How can I grow it? Contemplate that. How can I grow what I already have? The other side of that is, wait, I see a lot of people that are focused on trying to lose weight. This is also why most New Year's resolutions fail, because they're focused on what they want to lose. A lot of people that are going into New Year's resolutions, I'm going to start this diet because I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose. Focus on what you want to gain. What do you really want to gain? If you want trying to lose weight, what are you trying to gain? You're not trying to gain a smaller body or perfect image. Usually it's better health. And so if you shift your focus from losing weight to achieving better health, you're going to do things differently. You're going to have a different mindset. You're going to approach it differently. And that is much more likely to be successful than focusing on what you want to lose. And it's something you can maintain for much longer. My friend Alex, amazing guy. You can see him at That Man, formerly known as Flat Man the Flipper, right here on YouTube. He has been through an amazing transformation in his life in just the last few months. He's lost like over 200 pounds. And it wasn't focused on losing weight, it was focused on living healthier. He's lost a lot of weight. He's still not skinny, but he's lost a lot of weight. And he is in a much better health than he was before. He's fit better mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. He's been through this massive transformation. And I'll link to his channel down in the description so you can check him out. But Alex is one of my examples of people that he focused on better health, not on losing weight. And he had a massive transformation. You've got to focus your intentionality on what you want to gain, not what you want to lose. You don't want to lose being broke and being in poverty, because if you're focused on that, you're going to stay in poverty. If you want to focus on, what are you missing in your life, you'll continue experiencing what you're missing, because that's what your focus is on. If you want instead shift your focus to what you want to have more of in your life, that shift in your focus and meditate on that will start leading you to intuitions that will bring you to that which you want. So that's one of the keys to understanding law of attraction. When it comes to my depression, I had to realize I couldn't focus on I'm depressed, I'm powerless, I want less of that in my life. I had to shift my focus to more of what I do want, which was peace. When I made that shift in my focus, I started taking different actions and behaviors that started leading me. It wasn't an overnight trip, but it started leading me up the scale towards peace. But I had to focus on my goal is to reach peace, not I don't want to be depressed. If I focused on losing my depression, our mind doesn't want to lose anything, especially when your identity comes from that. See, part of this is what that ego consciousness is all about. It's the false identity. And when my identity, do you ever say, I am broke, I am depressed? That is saying you are creating your identity from that. And your ego is that false identity. That's what the ego is. It's that false identity of I am my lack of money. I am my depression. I am my lack of a good relationship. I am my external circumstances. And when you get your identity from those things that you have no control over, you are powerless. But when you start recognizing that I am an infinite being and I am a piece of source energy living incarnated on this planet to bring peace and harmony, to bring greater sense of peace to this planet. And I am here to help the planet through this spiritual transformation. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here right now. Every person on this planet right now, by the way, their soul came here to help with this transformation the world is going through. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here right now. Even the people you disagree with that are out of a touch and alignment with their own soul are here to do that. They're just out of in touch with why they're here. They're not in touch with who they are. They haven't done their own healing. Many of them haven't been through their own awakening, even though some of them claim to have been. One of the things I realized a long time ago, before this depression and everything, is an awakening is not a one-time event. It's not a one and done thing. I've seen a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm glad I'm starting to heal from this awakening. I don't ever want to go through that again. Don't worry, you will. I've been through 5 awakenings in my lifetime. And each one has taken me deeper into myself, deeper into connection with my soul, and higher in my consciousness. I've been able, and I've gone through these really deep, dark night of the soul depressions, and every one of them has launched me higher. I had to go down into that darkness in order to greater appreciate the light and go into the highest parts of the light that I could. We need to stop resisting our darkness, because our darkness is what leads us greater into understanding our light, into greater appreciation of the light that we have to share. If you are in resistance to your darkness, you are actually living in your darkness and pretending it's the light. That's the way I spent most of my life. And I had several awakenings to get me to this point. I had an awakening when I was 19. I had another one when I was about 25. I had another one when I was right at 30, when I was at 29 and a half to 30 years old, which was my Saturn return. Ended a marriage during that one. I went through another awakening when my daughter was born. Really, it started when we first found out about her brain deformity. I went through another awakening experience with that, and I learned about the power of surrender through that one. And then I got through this next awakening, was this deep depression, and this one that launched me into being able to do what I'm doing now. That's 5 awakenings I've gone through in my lifetime. Hopefully I don't have too many more to go. But everyone has taken me to higher levels of consciousness, deeper into understanding myself, deeper into understanding spirituality, deeper into understanding source. And because I have that deeper understanding, my ability to serve has expanded every time. My ability to help other people has expanded every time. My ability to be a hollow vessel that allows source to work through me to serve people has expanded every time. And I'm not perfect. I don't have to be. In my daily life, I make mistakes every single day. I probably made more mistakes today than some of you realize you made all week. And I'm okay with that, because I'm okay with my darkness, and I'm okay with the mistakes that I make, and I'm okay with being in my dark emotions at times. I just don't want to stay stuck there. And that's what I want to say to you. Even depression, if you are feeling powerless and depressed, it's okay to be there, but I want you to not stay stuck there. I want you to move out of that energy and into your peace. So I hope everybody is getting some value from this. If you find this valuable information, if you think that this journey could help you to grow your consciousness, again, subscribe to our channel. Give us a thumbs up if you haven't already, and share this with a friend who may be going through this darkness and may need help. My goal is to help as many people as I can, and I need other people to help me get the word out. If you have any questions, if you're in the live chat, that's weird. I just got a chat. Hi, Shelly. I didn't realize, because it's weird. My StreamYard is saying I have 0 viewers, and yet you're commenting in the chat, which means somebody's viewing what I'm saying. So thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to share, or insights that you would like to share, feel free to share them in the chat so we can discuss them. And if we don't have any, then I'm going to wrap it up for the day and go take care of my child who's been screaming. I don't know if y'all can hear him picking up on the microphone or not, but my child has been screaming outside my door because he wants some attention. So, yeah, we have a 2-year-old. He has a birthday later this week. We have an 8-year-old going on 9, and she's going to Dallas to get some work done. Hello, Shelly. I see you. She's going to see some doctors up in Dallas this week. So we got that all going on. Yeah, for some reason, my StreamYard shows 0 viewers on the live show, but I know sometimes that's off. I've had times where I had like 10, 15 people in the chat, and it was showing me that 0 viewers. So I don't know. So, all right. Well, we are going to go ahead and call it a day. We will come back next time. Thank you so much for joining us today. We love you. Go with peace. And if you do have any questions, leave us a comment in the comment, or if you have any insights that you would like to share. How do you deal with your depression, and how do you manage it? I would love to see other people's experience as well. So share me your experience in the comments below. We will see you next week, and you'll have a fantastic day. Go with peace and love.